So what if there was a female part? What would they do? They would dress up the men. Remember the idiots from A Midsummer Night's Dream? One of them was the lady. Sydney, what else?
The seats close to the stage are called ground room.
Yes. Were those seats better or worse than other seats?
Better.
Why?
Interact with the stage.
Because you could interact with the stage and
You can hear it better.
you could hear it better.
But wasn't it like if you drop a penny, you hear it better?
Close. This was modeled after the Greek theaters, which were like that. Yeah. Yes, sir.
No electricity, only candles.
No electricity, only candles, and most other plays were actually done during the daytime because they would save money on candles. Really? Mm-hmm. Also, those candles are a fire hazard, and the first theater burned down, so they went away from the candles for a while. Yes, ma'am.
It says churches were very critical. It took them 8 years to get permission to build it again after it burned down.
Right. So the churches were against the theater, and against this kind of, I don't know, devilish characters, talk of love, and all this, because it's not godly. Yes. It was the house of the devil.
If you missed it, you missed it. I think you missed it.
Yeah. This isn't like going to Netflix for the replay, right? This is a one and done situation. So everybody could attend, though, right? Provided you could get tickets. Tickets were not hard to get because they were cheap. The equivalent of $5 today. He did this because he wanted everybody to be able to go. All right. What else? You guys did a great job recapping. Yes.
Some tragedies were not sad.
Yes. So let's get into the elements of the tragedy and comedy. Start with tragedies. Not sad. They are sad, but they're not. They are unpleasant because they're based around
Revenge and ambition.
revenge, and they have this ambition, correct?
They were called tragic, not because they were sad, but because it was the story around the fall of a great hero.
Right.
Kind of good gone bad kind of situation.
A good gone bad situation, which is always hard, right? We watch someone climb the ranks and work their way up, and they're a good person, and then all of a sudden they make a wrong step, and we watch them
And
fall.
at the end, they're like, hey, this is wrong. They make these mistakes, and then they just die.
That's right. It's too late for them. Yes, ma'am.
Just because it's sad doesn't mean it's the only redeeming quality that it has.
Right. What is that redeeming quality? It's a new term we learned. It means pity and fear. Catharsis. Right? A cathartic experience can be had through this.
The people, the title, like whoever, like the people are in the title, they die.
Right. So, King Lear, is that a comedy or a tragedy?
That's tragedy.
It's a tragedy. What about Othello?
Tragedy.
What about Romeo and Juliet?
Tragedy.
What about Julius Caesar?
Tragedy.
What happens to all those characters?
They'll die.
They die. And that is the spoiler alert from Shakespeare. Every title of a main character, that person dies. What about Taming of the Shrew?
Comedy.
Comedy. What about Much Ado About Nothing?
Comedy.
What about A Midsummer Night's Dream?
Comedy.
These are all going to be Much Ado About Nothing, A Midsummer Night's Dream. All these have these fanciful titles, and they're all based around rural settings, right? Versus a tragedy, which is a castle or court. And why do they show us in a castle or court?
To show order.
Order. Order, because order symbolizes
Chaos. But no chaos.
the inverse of that would be chaos, right? It symbolizes what?
Order.
I'm sorry, I worded that poorly. The city, the walls of the city, the castle symbolize law and order, like you were trying to say. I just didn't set you up very well. Where the opposite is true for a comedy, right? The nature of it, forests and all that, are symbolic of lawlessness and chaos. Good?
Also how they were influenced by the Greek.
Yes. A lot of tragedies, Shakespearean tragedy is based around the Greek tragedies of old.
Lots of different ironies.
That goes with comedy.
Oh, like to tell you the irony?
Hold on. Anything else from a tragedy? Tragic hero?
He has to be a person of some high stature, such as a king, general, or nobleman.
Yeah, he has to be a high stature. If a guy's already kind of in a low status or low society and doing horrible things already, then where's he gonna fall?
I mean, he was a
I mean, it's not to say they don't do bad things, but it's not something you would write a tragedy about.
Not all tragic heroes, or not all tragic things. They're not all like bad, because sometimes like tragic means like good, sometimes it means bad.
In this case, it is actually good for the country of Scotland to have Macbeth because they got to purge the crown and start fresh, which is a horrible way to look at a tragedy like this, but it is. Yes.
It's like hammered. I don't know. It's like
Yes.
the tragic flaw, but like.
Yes. Some people call it hamartia. Some people call it hamartia. It's the tragic flaw, and a tragic flaw for most people in this case is ambition. They get a little bit too ambitious. Ambition is a good thing, right? It's what drives you. Too much ambition, though, and you will do anything to get ahead, and that's bad, right? You don't want to step on the little people to get ahead. We hear about this in politics all the time. People taking advantage of the little people, promising all these things, stepping on their way up, all the little people, and then not following through. Okay? What about comedies? Sir?
Comedy will have a period of chaos and uncertainty.
It will have a period of chaos and uncertainty. You are correct. Rachel?
They would have a comic hero who's like mischievous
Right there. Puck? Absolutely. Lauren?
it's normally set in a rural environment to mirror the fact of it having like no laws and chaos in nature, because in a tragedy it puts it in a castle or a court to resemble like law and order.
Very good. Rocco?
Usually has something to do with love that is experienced by others.
Right, it's usually centered around some sort of love story. Yes.
Happily ever after.
Yes, it always ends happily ever after.
Usually chaos is after like young lovers overcome problems.
Yes, they have to have problems, overcome them.
It has really complex plot lines.
It does. Complex plot lines.
Fighting it like with family members.
Yes, it's usually through family members first. Yes.
Mistaken identities.
What was that?
People get mixed up.
Mistaken identities. Yes, people get mixed up. Usually because of fairies.
There's usually a clever servant or a magical fairy.
In our case, we had a bunch of fairies. All right, so on our section over here, I'm going to show you quickly. We have 3 sections, right? We got fairies. We have the idiots. And we have the lovers, right? So our fairies, we had Puck, Oberon,
The best one.
and Titania. The idiots, we had Bottom, Quince, Peter Quince, Pizza Quince, Snarveling, Flute, and so on and so forth. We don't need to know all their names. And then this section we had Hermia and Lysander, Demetrius, and Helena. And then we of course had the dad of this causing problems, and then he went to the king and queen, Hippolyta.
You can write them on there too, because they
Yeah.
Hippolyta and who?
Theseus.
Okay. So you want to talk about complex interwoven plot lines. What are some things that Puck, Oberon, and Titania just in their group had problems with? Don't cross lines. Yeah?
Their marriage over on Titania.
Why was their marriage on the rocks? Let's say.
I think it was with the child.
Right. The little Indian boy.
Yeah.
Right. They wanted to have a little servant, and they were fighting over who should get the servant. What's another one?
Over on the stone, oh wait, I guess.
Ah, see, you crossed over. But there's already something here, right? So go to the next line, the idiots. What kind of issues did they deal with?
They're all dumb, so they don't have problems.
So they're not smart. What's one thing that was around that?
Maybe they like had problems communicating with each other about their issues and trying to fix.
What was one communication problem?
Oh.
When they mix the lovers up.
Who did?
No.
Okay, sorry.
Who mixed the lovers up?
Fairies.
Well, yeah, they did. The idiots. Bottom and Quincy. With a dude who couldn't read.
His head. Were there problems like with the play
Mhm.
and figuring out how they were gonna do it?
Yeah. How about they couldn't find Bottom because his head was a
I
donkey,
didn't realize that he was his clothes. But...
ran away, and then now they don't have everybody to do a play, and they got one guy who can't read his parts, so he's a lion, and all he does is roar at people. They got their own problems. Over here, the lovers, they got problems of their own too. That one goes without saying, right?
Yeah.
He loves her, but she's in love with him. Dad says to marry this one. I don't want to marry that one. I want to marry the other one.
Then her best friend likes the other one.
The best friend's in love with the other one, and then there's all kinds of laws and happens that preclude this from happening. What's up?
Well, because like with it goes back to the chain of equality where it's unfair and just.
Oh yeah. There's this unjust, unfair law. That's why the forest is a good setting for this, because it makes that law appear more obvious and stupid. Right? That's why the tragedies are set within the walls of the castle, so that chaos seems a little more obvious, because there's a lot of laws around. All right. That feels good. Ever remember the plot? Okay.
Yeah.
The general plot, because there's not going to be huge plot. I mean, there'll be basic plot questions, but there won't be like. So tell me about the play. It's not going to be an open-ended kind of thing. It's going to be straightforward questions. Like, could you tell me which two couples were supposed to end up together?
Like
Like in the end, when they're happily ever after. Hermia and Lysander, Demetrius and Helena. Okay. No notes though, so you're gonna know that. Yeah, but if it's like a multiple choice thing, like these two end up together, and these two end up together,
Then yeah, you should.
should be able to get it. Okay. So what about we did tragedy. We do elements of comedy.
You do irony, situational
We have the elements of a comedy. So it's in a rural environment. We have all these interwoven plot lines. We did all that. But what about we mentioned briefly, but what about the ironies? Could you tell me the difference? A definition? Sure. But how about someone who can give me a definition of situational irony and an example? Me. Anyone who hasn't raised their hand yet today?
Nope, looks like it's
I would say most of you have raised your hand today, but there's 3 at that table, there's 3 at this table, 4 at this table, 4 at this group, and 1 at this group. 1 at this group. I know you know the answer. It's in your notes.
I want to do it.
I know you know.
I want to do it.
Hey, the reason I'm asking is because this is absolutely going to be on there. It's one of the major focal points, too. Situational irony is defined as the opposite of what you would expect.
The lovers.
What is our example from the play? Valente, Thank you for volunteering.
Thank you.
What's the example? The example of situational irony from the play. There's a bunch. Something that would be the opposite of what you would expect to happen. Opposite.
So one example would be when Helena says that if Demeter doesn't love her, she'll love him more.
Absolutely. Yes. I do nothing but love him, and he hates me, and it makes me love him more. That's the opposite of what you would expect to have happen. But love is blind and stupid.
Yes.
Doesn't make sense. Lauren.
When Huck drops the flower juice on the guy's face and makes him turn into a donkey, no one would expect him to turn into a donkey. And then when he sees
Titania.
Titania, and then no one would expect that to happen, especially when he turns into a donkey.
No one would expect, Bottom to and the Queen of Fairies to fall in love with each other, right? That's ironic. But then on top of it, there's also dramatic irony happening on the stage, right? Because he doesn't even know he has a donkey head, and all of his friends run away from him. That's dramatic. But then this whole situation is ironic as well. So depending on how you want to define it and how you want to back it up, you could have similar responses, right? If the audience knows, but the people on stage don't, that's dramatic irony. So when he wakes up, or when Titania wakes up, she's going to sleep on stage and she's got the love juice on her eyes, right? She wakes up and she sees Bottom. The whole audience knows she's waking up, and she does this dramatic stretch, and she gets up, and the whole audience is like, it's going down. She doesn't know, he doesn't know, but it happens. It's the building of hilarity that ensues, right? Good. Mason, did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
What's
I
up?
was gonna say whenever both the boys turned and started looking Helena.
Correct. What's ironic about that?
Because they already both loved Hermia,
Exactly.
and then they just got switched.
The opposite of what you would expect, which makes it funny and horribly tragic for the other girl. And it's also the opposite of what you expect. She doesn't even like the attention that the boys are giving her, even though she's been asking for ever for it. Okay, comedies, good.
Yep.
Tragedies, good.
Yep.
Okay, are you ready?
What?
This is out of nowhere. Penelope. How many feet are in iambic pentameter? 5 feet in iambic pentameter. Good on your feet there. See what I did? See? And how many syllables are in those 5 feet? 10
I know.
syllables in those 5 feet, because each foot has 2 syllables. One stressed and one unstressed. That's the fastest any class has gotten that right all day.
Really?
And I knew that
Yes.
one.
And Penelope wasn't even paying attention, so that worked out great. Okay. That's about as in-depth as it gets. You might see something like chassis, chateau, her dress by accident. Or Dolores has a turtle shell, you know. Or did anybody write down the other one? Sophia had said I know that. There you go. Let's see. Shakespeare, comedies, tragedies. Dramatic, we did. Opposite of what you'd expect.
That's what we just did.
I was looking for an
Dramatic is the people on stage don't know, but we do.
Yeah, but we know. And I have it.
You have one? What is it?
Well, I said the one where he was telling Huck what to do, and he said by the actions garments he had on. Because we know that both of them
Right,
were
and they both have it. I'm good.